Hello, class. I want to do a brief video in which I show you how to write in third person. This is a concept that comes up a lot in academic writing, and you'll be using third person not only in this class but throughout your academic careers. So this video is meant to give you a brief orientation to it. Let me blow up my screen here. There. Okay, so how to write in third person. We'll be covering four main things today. I forgot to put the fourth one on the agenda, but they are what is third person, why third person is used in academic writing, how to turn your writing into third person, and when to use third person is the fourth item that I will discuss today. Okay, third person simply means that you're using pronouns such as he, she, it, and they, or you're referring to someone other than the author or the audience. And this is very important because sometimes, especially when you're new to writing, sometimes it can be difficult to differentiate between when to use certain pronouns. First person pronouns are I, me, we, and us, and that's when the writer is referring to him or herself. Um, and they're calling attention to themselves when they do that. Second person is using you and your pronouns. There's nothing inherently wrong with using first and second person pronouns, but there are reasons why third person is preferred in academic writing, and I will cover that in the next slide. Okay, why is third person used in academic writing? One is it sounds more professional. For example, if you're writing about an author other than you, usually people refer to it this way. In her article, Jones stated, and you notice that I've inserted the year there, that's an in-text citation, which is something else that you'll be using. But referring to the author in third person uh, creates a more professional tone. And always, when you're referring to an author or another adult human being in your papers, use the last name. I mean, let's suppose that Jones's first name is Samantha. Sometimes I get papers where students will say things like, in her article, Samantha said that. Well, using the first using the first person's first name sounds a little bit too familiar. It creates the impression that you know the person on a personal level. And really, in academic writing, even if you do know the person, I mean, you want to create that professional tone, and using the last name it will do that. The second reason to use third person is it keeps readers focused on the topic. I language focuses the reader on the writer. And sometimes it's okay to do that. If you're writing a personal narrative or something from your own experiences, then it's necessary and good to do that. You language focuses readers on themselves. So if you're saying, uh, you should do this, you should do that, then you're directing the reader's attention to them. Sometimes it's okay to do that, especially if you're writing directions. But for the most part, in academic language, these things are distracting. The third reason to use academic writing is it helps writers distance themselves from the topic. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to distance yourself, especially if it's something that you passionately care about? Well, you want to do that because it reduces the appearance of bias and subjectivity. And that's important in writing because you want to create a professional uh, uh, identity when you're writing by assuring the reader that you can be trusted. If you're writing only from your own personal opinions, your own personal subjectivity, then the reader may have a bit of a difficulty buying into what you're selling. To put it one way, uh, you creating that neutral tone, distancing yourself from the topic, helps create that neutral and objective tone, so that the reader can focus more on the content of your paper and not on you as a writer. Okay, here are some examples of how to turn your writing into third person. And these are things that come up a lot in essays, and I think this is worth explaining in some detail. Okay, very often students will write things like this. In this essay, I will explain how to save money while living in a college dorm, or whatever topic they're writing about. In this essay, I will argue that. In this essay, I will do that. Avoid doing that. One of my colleagues at Grantham called that the magic show. It's like watching a magician standing on a stage and say, "Watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat." Don't tell the reader you're going to pull a rabbit out of the hat. Just pull the rabbit out of the hat. So instead of that, use this. Saving money while living in a college dorm is challenging, but it can be accomplished by following 3 steps. Or you may have more than 3 steps, or whatever. But the idea is that you're using third person here by directing the reader's attention to what it is you're going to be teaching them or telling them, as opposed to you, the writer, as opposed to directing the reader's attention to you. Another thing that often comes up is some variation of this. I strongly believe that screen time should be limited for children. Uh, when we are writing arguments or persuasive essays, we are very often coming from our own beliefs, our own value system, and that's fine. But avoid saying, I believe, I'm in my opinion, uh, I feel, or things like that, because again, that's about you, the writer, and not about the topic. A better way of saying that is screen time for children should be limited because X, Y, and Z. And for the letters here, you would input your own reasons that support your claim. Uh, Please don't use expressions like I strongly believe or I firmly believe, because that doesn't make your argument any more credible. It just draws greater attention to you. Another very common thing that comes up is a variation on this. Children should be spanked because I was spanked and turned out fine. Very often, writers like to rely on their own experiences to prove a point. Unfortunately, there are some problems with that. The reader does not know you. The reader has no way of knowing if you turned out fine or not. And just because you had maybe a positive experience towards something like being spanked doesn't mean that other children will as well. There are lots of arguments both in favor of and against spanking children. I'm not going to go into much detail about that, but you can always, people tend to write about this topic. It's perfectly fine as a topic. But what you want to do instead of using your own experience, use evidence from research to support your claim. And you should do that for any kind of academic essay that you write. Okay. Here are some tips on when to use and not to use third person. Use it when you're writing a persuasive essay, an argument, or a scholarly paper. In other words, most of the academic writing you will do in college will be done in third person. Do not use it when you're writing a personal narrative or reflection. The first assignment for this class, for EN 101, is about writing well, actually, you're going to be writing a literacy narrative for week 1 and then a personal narrative for week 3. In both of those cases, do not use third person. Use first person because you're writing from your own personal experiences. Do not use third person when you're referring to yourself. Sometimes students will say things like, in this paper, the author will argue, where the author this time is the writer referring to him or herself. Don't do that. That sounds stilted and artificial. In some journals and some higher forms of academic writing, you may see writers actually do this, but there's a certain technique to using it, and you've got to use it without being distracting. Uh, when writers refer to themselves in third person, it's distracting. And do not use third person when an assignment specifically allows you to write from your own experiences, observations, or opinions. I'm taking classes right now, and sometimes classes ask me to write a very long paper about a particular topic and then to share my own thoughts or insights with it. So for that particular paragraph or that particular section of the paper, I'm going to write in first person because that's what the assignment asked me to do. If there's any doubt about this, whether you should use first person or not, reach out to your instructor and ask. Your instructor can give you guidance on when to use it and when not to use it. Okay, Those are the main points in writing in third person. As always, if you have questions, please reach out to me at my email address on the screen. And uh, one final thought is that sometimes it can be very difficult for students to get in the brain habit of writing in third person, because very often we're used to writing in first person. But with practice, you can do it. And uh, one thing that helps is after you finish writing a draft of a paper, go through it very carefully. You should always edit your work, but go through it another time and look specifically for those instances of first person and see if you can find a way to reword that into third person. Thanks for watching and have a good day.